Have you ever walked away from a conversation replaying every word you said, wondering if you offended someone or said too much or not enough? If you live with PTSD, anxiety, or depression, you might think that means that you're bad with people. But what if social intelligence isn't about being outgoing, charismatic, or saying all the right things? What if it's simply about learning to understand emotions, yours and theirs, in a way that creates safety, connection, and healthy boundaries? Do you want to achieve your goals, but anxiety is tripping you up? Like to keep those fun weekend plans, but depression has you canceling again? Hey, I'm Lori, dog mom, lover of nature, and hygge enthusiast. Positive psychology skills help me overcome chronic severe PTSD. If you're ready to learn how to overcome your anxiety and depression and rediscover happiness and purpose in life, then get your cozy on and let's get started. Welcome back to Practical Solutions for PTSD. I'm so glad you're here today. And we are picking up on our Not Broken Equipped series, and we're going to be talking about our next character strength, which is social intelligence. But before we get there, I have a question for you. When life gets hard and you're facing challenges, do you know what your greatest strengths are? Not what you're good at, not what other people expect from you, but the strengths that actually energize you and give you motivation to move forward, just that natural inbuilt motivation. These strengths that help you solve problems, build relationships, or recover from setbacks and keep moving forward. Most people don't. And I have to be honest, I didn't used to either. And because they don't, they end up borrowing strategies that work for someone else, but never quite fit them. And I did that. I can't tell you how many times. That's why I'd like to invite you into a anxiety and depression breakthrough coaching session, because together we'll identify your top strengths, uncover how they already help you navigate challenges, and build practical ways to use them more intentionally in your daily life. And you can do that. You can lean into that and use them intentionally to help you overcome challenges. Because when you know your strengths, you can stop guessing what is the best way to move forward. You start leveraging what already works. So you can go to practicalsolutionsforptsd.com/breakthrough. Read through that, all kinds of information on the coaching sessions there. You can just click on the button right there at the top, though, if you're ready to go and just set up an appointment with me. We'll sit down, help you walk through your strengths, what they are, and how to use them. Get some practical tips to help you deal with the challenges that you're facing today and get you moving on the right track. So again, go to practicalsolutionsforptsd.com/breakthrough and schedule your appointment now. As I mentioned, we're going to be picking up on our character strength series, and we're going to be talking specifically about social intelligence. And to kind of give you an idea of what social intelligence is about, it's not necessarily about being, quote, good with people or charismatic or socially skilled, especially for those of us dealing with trauma. It's actually more about understanding people's emotions as well as your own. So you'll see this a lot in entertainers, especially like comedians or magicians, some of your singers that interact a lot with their audience. Entertainers are really, really good at social intelligence. At least the good ones are. A good entertainer is very attuned to their audience, but it's also about being attuned to your own emotions as well. This character strength of social intelligence. You need to be able, it helps you to be able not only to understand them, but to know how to better navigate those emotions, both yours and others. With awareness and care. So it's not about performing, being liked, always saying the right thing. It's about connection and attunement and authentic understanding. So sometimes that social intelligence is going to be right out there in front, like with your entertainers and the people that are really good with connecting with others. Other times it can be just really quiet in those times when you're just interacting one-on-one and you have someone who's really attuned here and they'll pick up on stuff because their social intelligence is really high. Both sides of that count. And I'm just going to be upfront with this one. Social intelligence is not one of my signature strengths, and I think it's somewhere in the mid-range. I'm not really sure. I've worked at this to try to make it better, but it's not one of those that is one of my easily reach for. I will say it can be developed. Social intelligence is the capacity to perceive, understand, and respond thoughtfully to emotions and social dynamics. For the trauma informed perspective, social intelligence is deeply connected to nervous system regulation. So, this becomes really important because you're understanding your own emotions and how they interact with other people or how it's responding to other people. Trauma and anxiety can make relationships feel unpredictable or unsafe. And this is where social intelligence can really help you in this situation because it allows you to read the cues of other people, to understand intentions, and act in ways that maintain connection and personal safety. And this can be a really good thing to help you navigate, especially if people are connected to your trauma. This can really help you navigate that. So it includes self awareness, noticing your own feelings in social interactions. It includes empathy, so recognizing and understand others' emotions, and adaptive communication. And this is really important because you're responding in ways that are safe and respectful to the other person because you are aware of how they're feeling. Now, there obviously is a way this can be seriously abused, and we're going to get into that a little bit and the dark side of social intelligence because knowing and understanding the other person's emotions and how to adapt your communication, you could potentially use this character strength to manipulate people, to be abusive, etc. So it's something you need to be conscious of and aware of and make sure you're not going there. Because one thing to understand, and this not just with social intelligence, but with all the character strengths, when you hit that dark side, it's so easy to use this because you're good at it. I mean, this is something you are naturally good at doing. And so it's very easy to lean on that in the wrong context, to overuse it, to use it to manipulate people because you're super good at it. And so that's where we need to be careful that we're managing these strengths correctly and utilizing them correctly, to be able to help and not hinder other people and ourselves to make sure that we're all staying in there together. But there's a special note about social intelligence. It is not manipulation. Now, obviously, it can be used for that, but that's definitely not what we're talking about. It is attunement, the ability to move through social spaces thoughtfully while honoring both yourself and others. So, in everyday life, social intelligence is going to show up things like listening fully and noticing emotional cues. So, if you are one of these, you're going to absolutely recognize that. But if you're not, and you have people in your life that do have high social intelligence, they're going to come easily to mind because it's the people you sit down with and they are fully just like locked in listening to you 100%, and you feel like you're the only person in the room. They're totally tuned into what you're saying, and they can adapt their responses to help reflect or encourage you in your emotional state, whatever that may be. Another one that you're going to see this in everyday life is adjusting your tone or words based on the other person's comfort, which I've already alluded to that. Recognizing when to speak, when to listen, and when to step back. Now, social intelligent people are going to be really good at this. It doesn't mean they're going to be perfect all the time or they get it right every single time, but they're going to be a lot better picking up on that. I used to be terrible. I'm better than I used to be, but I definitely don't always get it right. That's for sure. Another thing they're really good at is offering support that is safe and appropriate. And this is really good. Those people that you call up, you just really want to talk to them when you're in a tough spot because they're really there for you and stand beside you. Those are the ones that are probably have a high social intelligence in their character strengths. So, for people with anxiety, social intelligence can reduce misreading social cues and help you respond rather than react. So, this is a really good way to utilize this and to help you decrease your anxiety. For people with depression, it can help maintain connection even when energy is low. So, when you don't have a lot of energy to engage with people, you can use that social intelligence to just make small gestures or to reach out in small ways. Provide some thoughtful words, maybe just on one on one, maybe not to a lot of people, but just a few. It can help you keep that engagement, or simply just showing presence because you're really good about connecting to folks. And so you can just be present in a conversation. And that is a way to maintain connection. Even when your energy is low, you don't have a lot to give. For people with seasonal depression, social intelligence is noticing which relationships or interactions are nourishing and which might need space or boundaries. So When I was preparing for this episode, I was getting tickled because boundaries have been front and center for the last like 2 or 3 months. So I'm not sure who all I'm talking to today that needs to hear this and why this keeps coming up in almost every single podcast I have. But here you go, boundaries. Once again, this becomes really important with all the humanity character strengths because it has to do with people. And it's really important that you put guards in place. Otherwise, you can become very depleted because you're giving too much, you're connecting too much, or whatever that may be. So, boundaries are still really, really important when it comes to social intelligence as well. Social intelligence is connection with awareness. With awareness, it's not performance or perfection. So, I mentioned earlier there's definitely a dark side to social intelligence, just like there is with every strength. So, I'm not picking on social intelligence by any means. Every single strength has this. But this is where your strength is misapplied, overused. Social intelligence can turn into people pleasing or over adapting to avoid conflict because you can see it. I mean, you can sense this in other people. So, trying to avoid that conflict, you can become too accommodating or too adaptive and become very much of a people pleaser. It can also be emotional manipulation or guilt tripping because you know how to do that emotional connection. So you have to be careful of that. You can be over analyzing interactions and become self critical. And I talked about this some in the intro where you're constantly thinking about the conversation. What did I say? How did it come across? What do I need to change? All this stuff you can just get into your head a little bit too much. You can also suppress your own needs to maintain harmony. And this is where boundaries come into play. So you need to be careful. And it doesn't mean that you don't do this at all, but you don't want to go get into this practice of not meeting your own emotional needs to maintain harmony. Obviously, if you're in a place that's how it keeps you safe to be able to get out of that situation, absolutely. This is where your strength comes into play, but you want to be careful that you're not overdoing it. For trauma survivors, social intelligence may develop as a survival strategy, which I've already alluded to. It could be hyper awareness of others' emotions, but can feel exhausting or inauthentic. And so you want to, this is obviously, we're still talking about the dark side here, where you're just too attuned to other people and become just hyper aware. And I've talked to people before that have that high social awareness, and when their emotions are low themselves and they walk into a room with a lot of emotions going on, they're picking up on this from a lot of people, and it can be very exhausting and for themselves. So that's something to be aware of. For anxiety, social intelligence may become hypervigilance in social settings, and so you're constantly scanning, you're constantly looking. For depression, you may feel disconnected despite understanding social cues. And I've actually been in this position. Again, social intelligence is not one of my signature strengths. It's a little further down for me. But I've been in that place where I could read the social cues. I knew what was going on. It was a place I was familiar with and comfortable with. And yet I was in a place emotionally that I was very disconnected. So despite understanding what was going on and what was expected of me, I was very disconnected in that moment. So, just to kind of reframe some of this, social intelligence is safest and most meaningful when it's paired with boundaries. There we go again. Self awareness and authenticity. So, you need to be tracking your own emotions through this process and not forgetting that while you're connecting with other people. So, how can it help us with the trauma? So, for PTSD, social intelligence supports safe navigations of relationships. It can help you notice danger signals, recognize those safe spaces, and interact without re traumatizing yourself, which is so, so important. You don't want to re traumatize yourself. So, it really helps prevent some of that. For anxiety, social intelligence reduces social uncertainty, which is really nice. And one reason I wish I had more of it. Understanding others' emotions and intentions calm hyper alertness and help you respond instead of reacting. Understanding others' emotions and intentions can calm hyper alertness and help you respond instead of react. For depression, social intelligence fosters connection even in micro moments. It reminds your nervous system that relationships are possible and meaningful. For seasonal depression, social intelligence helps prioritize supportive interaction while allowing space for interaction that drains energy. So it really helps you to be able to tell the difference because some people can give you energy and some people take all your energy. So the people that take all your energy, you may want to minimize contact with them if possible in those times when you're emotionally depleted yourself. It doesn't mean you're going to ignore them or you're blacklisting them or blocking them on your phone. It just means that you're going to monitor that connection and make sure that you're doing it in such a way that it's not going to drain your energy too far. Social intelligence is not a cure for social anxiety or isolation. I'm sure some of you are like, "Oh man," but it is. You still have to deal with that, but it does provide tools for connection and safety. So it can help give you the stuff at your fingertips that can help you work through that. And there are, as always, there's ways that you can grow social intelligence. And I was trying to take special note of these when I was going through here, because as I've said before, this is not one of my signature strengths, but it's something I do want to develop. So here are ways to cultivate social intelligence and do so in a safe way. One is to observe first and respond second. Now, this is one I've actually learned to do a little better. It used to be, the thought come in my mind and there wasn't a whole lot of filter before it came out, but you can notice cues in the tone and the expression or energy of someone else before acting, and then you can respond intentionally. Another one is you can practice self-awareness, and we've talked about how social intelligence paired with self-awareness, this is where it's safest and most effective. So check in with your own feelings and interactions. Am I safe? Am I comfortable? Do I feel regulated? So make sure that you're tracking your own emotional well-being while you're in those places, and doing so consciously. Making the decision to do that can really help you. And this is something I've learned the hard way to do better. I've said before, one of the ways I identified my boundaries is by breaking them enough that I was like, oh, yeah, there needs to be a boundary right there. It really has helped me to develop this. But for those of you that it is, you would be even better at it to be able to check in with your own emotions and make sure that you're in the place you want to be. And then the third thing you can do is use micro practices. Not everything in social intelligence is big. I mentioned this earlier, but you can do small things as well, like a gentle smile, a nod, acknowledging a feeling in conversation. All these counts. Those small gestures can build relational attunement. So, especially when I mentioned earlier that people with social intelligence are really good listeners. They can really tune in. And I've learned to do this. It took me time, but I learned. And being able to just truly listen to someone and give them those small gestures to let them know that you're tuned in to what they're feeling, what they're saying, and you're responding accordingly. So these can be really powerful in a conversation. Number four is honoring boundaries. And here it is again. Social intelligence is not about pleasing everyone. You need to protect your energy and communicate those limits clearly. And then obviously when the other person that you're speaking to or you're engaged with, they have boundaries as well, you're honoring those. So you're setting your own boundaries to protect yourself and you're honoring the boundaries of other people. But you need to protect your energy. This is, like I said, the humanities virtue with love, honesty, and social intelligence. All three of these can be very depleting. So it's super important that you're putting in boundaries to make sure that you're taking care of yourself while you're using this character strength. I mentioned this a couple weeks ago, but if you're not careful with your character strengths and you don't have boundaries in place, what should be energizing becomes depleting. So you want to make sure that you're doing that. So as we close and wrap things up here, I want to just a quick reminder, social intelligence is not charisma or perfection. It's awareness, empathy, and connection, both with yourself and with others. If social intelligence feels hard right now, and I know I don't care what your strengths are, if you're going through a tough time, sometimes it can be difficult to access them in the way that you're used to. You're used to doing certain things, and it can be really difficult to get there, but that doesn't mean that your strength is missing. It may simply be waiting for a safer way to engage or how to engage differently in the challenges that you're facing right now. And as I mentioned earlier, that's something I could help you with in finding different ways to use those character strengths. So you can go to practicalsolutionsforptsd.com/breakthrough, and I can help you with navigate some of that if you need some help with that. I want to wrap up with this reflection that you can take with you. What is one small intentional way you can notice or respond to someone else's feelings this week while still honoring your own? Again, boundaries, so important. What is one small intentional way you can notice or respond to someone else's feelings this week while honoring your own needs? And as always, you don't have to act on this immediately. Just let the idea settle and think about that. And then at some point in the days to come, put that into action. If you would like some help in mapping out your character strengths and how you can use them in your everyday life to turn on your superpowers, go to practicalsolutionsforptsd.com/breakthrough and schedule your appointment today. Hey, my friend, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If so, would you please take 30 seconds and share it with someone you know who may be struggling with depression and anxiety? Also, would you please leave a quick review for the show? Knowing how this podcast is helping you fills my heart with so much joy, and it motivates me for future episodes. For now, it's time for Sam and I to head outside to enjoy some sunshine and fresh air. We'll see you back here on Tuesdays and Thursdays for more great episodes.